Hello YouTubers, this is the Noobifier. While we kept getting closer to the release of 3.0, I took the time to perform a full overhaul of my system and updated the studio. Welcome to a rundown of my system and a behind-the-scenes overview of the home studio. Just over a year ago, my wife and I moved to Ottawa, and at that time I decided to invest a bit into the channel. I decided to build a studio in the unfinished part of the basement. Today I'm going to talk briefly about the room and its most recent update. If you're interested in more detail, please have a look at the link up right now. Let's begin. When I started to make content, I took feedback seriously as I was trying to find my way. Subscribers and viewers suggested audio was too loud, the music was crap, the text was hard to read, and I spoke too monotone. You name it, I was doing it wrong. I know I'm far from perfect, but I realized very early on that it's nearly impossible to fix bad audio in post. You can burn a ton of time trying to remove all the extra unwanted ambient noises from your environment. Other people talking or walking, a TV that might be too loud, traffic outside, kids playing, it's all noise pollution. It's all noise pollution and it's all going to end up on your track. The only way to get rid of it is to isolate the mic and the recording environment. That's one of the two goals that I set out to control by building this room. A friend of mine was very curious and decided to sign out a precise low-level dB meter from work. After setting it up in the room on a tripod, we were able to achieve an ambient 4.6 dB, providing neither of us were in the room. Apparently, no matter how still a human is, we still raise the ambient to 5.8 dB. We set up the same equipment in the basement just outside the studio. I turned absolutely everything off in the house and we couldn't get it lower than 17 dB in my basement with all the doors closed at 11 p.m. I'd consider that a best case normal scenario to make a quiet environment. Now add all the things such as air conditioning, the servers, other systems, and you can imagine all of that adds up. So the room is indeed isolated, but that does absolutely nothing for the second issue, echo. The idea of being anechoic or echo-free is to allow whatever sound source you want to register to hit the target or microphone and then be scattered or absorbed. By never allowing the sound to reflect back once or several times, the recorded audio is free of reverb. Reverb is naturally occurring, and it's sometimes a valuable part of the recording. In this case, I want my recording to be echo-free. I can always add it electronically if I want in post, but it's nearly impossible to remove it. Different sound waves have different wavelengths and different levels of energy. Each frequency range requires a different approach. Diffusers and absorbers are two different types of control. Pyramid foam or even egg cartons will neutralize and do a great job to deaden the environment. That was actually proven to me when I removed the original wall treatment to prepare for the update. Foam base traps will deaden most of the energy that'll travel down the wall. You'll notice at some pro-level rooms that they actually use the wall geometry as part of their design. This is not always possible, so the corner foam blocks are a great construction-free option. My studio uses two different types of diffusers and foam to absorb. The front and back wall of my studio have what's known as a quadratic diffuser or a skyline trap. This is because of their resemblance to a downtown city skyline. The idea for the floor-to-ceiling baffles was always part of the original build, but it was too much to tackle at the time. The baffles are made up of alternating 2x1 and 3x1 inch cedar. The baffles themselves are made from 1/4 inch ply in 3, 4, and 5 inch lengths. As the name diffuser suggests, any sound within the room will be split up and scattered. The diffusers by themselves aren't perfect, which is why you have foam to absorb. The foam will be a tricky balance. Right now I have about 1/4 of the baffles lined with foam. You might think, well, more is better. But there's a balance that I want to achieve and it's going to take time to test. I need to add and subtract foam until I get the right sound. This one should be funny. There's a misconception that a person will go crazy in a totally quiet room. I can tell you this is untrue. It's an odd experience according to people who visit the room for the first time, but it won't make you go crazy. Most people who visit can actually hear their own heartbeat and some can actually hear the blood flowing past their ears. With the most recent upgrades, I finally achieved what I set out to for the sake of content creation. Future upgrades are fairly simple. In the future, I'm going to apply a layer of deadliner to the surface of the interior and exterior door. Deadliner is a fairly thick self-adhesive rubber-based sheet that can be worked into uneven shapes with a heat gun. It isolates and dampens vibrations from permeating through objects. The door is actually a weak spot, and this will address it. Onto the network, gear, and hardware. I don't stream, so I don't require a capture PC. My main system is based on an Intel 7700K overclocked to 5.1 at 1.3 volts on liquid. There's 32 gigs of DDR4 memory at 3600 MHz, and I would like to thank a citizen who goes by Twistar for donating that to the channel. I have a link up to his website in the description. Please drop in and see what he's doing. His site is a one-stop shop for all things gaming and is a valuable resource. The video is being handled by a Gigabyte 1080 G1 driving a 35-inch Acer Predator 2K 144Hz G-Sync monitor and a 24-inch Acer for productivity. There's a 500GB Samsung 960 Pro M.2 SSD and a 1TB Intel M.2 SSD on an MSI Z270 Carbon ATX motherboard. For power, I have a Thermaltake Gold 8750W on a Thermaltake P3 wall-mountable open-frame case. If you plan to run a PC and a monitor away from each other, you need to know that G-Sync and high refresh rates don't like distance. The reason the PC is directly on the wall behind the monitor is to keep them as close as possible while letting them be outside of the room. This is done specifically to keep the heat outside of the room and exclude any noise made by the computer. I'll mention my accessories to give you some ideas on your own setup. I have a pair of Warthogs mounted to a stand-up desk with a pair of Monster-Tech mounts. I use these for piloting. I have a 10-keyless Corsair K60 and a 21-key mechanical keypad, both rocking cherry red switches. I use a Logitech G502 mouse and a wired Logitech G633 headphone. I transitioned to that for FPS. I have a classic Xbox One USB controller that I plan to use for land vehicles after 3.0 drops. I have a Blue Yeti mic on a Rode P1 arm on a Blue Ring shock mount. I use TrackIR, Voice Attack, and have a basic Logitech webcam. The audio in the room is a pair of Paradigm monitors being driven by a Yamaha amp. There's no sub. They give me a natural reference for mastering videos and also produce an awesome sound just for enjoying tracks. Networked to all the computers in the house is an i5 16GB computer with a 500GB SSD for the OS and 4x8TB RAID drives in RAID 5. The array was scaled down from 36TB as I never used over 18. The new setup is formatted down to 24TB usable. I use this computer to store historical project files off my main system, to stream media to any computer in the house, and it's also the backend for the downstairs TV. All the data is backed up to loose drives using an external dock. And that's it. My goal today was to give the community a detailed look behind the scenes, to curb curiosity, and to give you ideas for your own system. As you can imagine, 3.0 is going to bring with it a 100% change to pretty much everything. I'm going to break down the new systems, weapon choices, sweet loadouts, and ideas to keep you informed. Watch out for my exclusive review of a Wooting 1, which is a mechanical analog keyboard. This device may remove any possible downside to using a keyboard in Star Citizen. Thanks very much for spending your time with me today. If you found this video interesting, please link it over to a friend or orgmate. My goal is to grow this channel, and I can't do that without the help of citizens like you. Fly safe, and I'll see you in the verse.